Are you connecting all the dots on the journey to your inner wisdom? Are you looking for a fresh perspective on the messages you've been asking for?
So who doesn't want to be happier, healthier, wealthier, and wiser, and be able to make life's choices with confidence because they finally see the signs? We know you do.
I'm Angela Coulter.
And I'm Sarah Sieg Avignoni.
We're two conscious journeyers dedicated to turning over those rocks and helping you on your personal intuitive sleuthing mission of evolution in our multi-dimensional hologram.
And that includes Earth too.
Yes, it does. Welcome to Solving Me, our conscious puzzle-solving podcast, where we look at the natural relation between your life experiences and their meaning in the bigger picture, from the most mundane to the most overwhelming.
So what do we mean by all this? Well, have you ever thought that getting a flat tire and twisting your ankle could be related? And maybe a message about what's preventing you from getting that awesome, high-paying job you would love. Believe it or not, it's all connected.
Want to know more? Come on and let's get sleuthing. See what comes up in this episode, because it might just be about you. Welcome to episode 16. So, being that we are in spring when this episode launches, what is everybody, a lot of people are focused on? We're focusing on some topics that people are focused on. And many people start working out and they want to get thinner and lose some weight because, summer clothes and all that kind of stuff. So weight is our topic for today, because and it can go in so many directions. So we'll see what we can do in 20 minutes, shall we?
Exactly. See what we can contain it to
within our time frame, like our last episode.
I know. I tell you, they're all just starting to feed each other, which is awesome. Awesome. And this actually can go back a few episodes and how are we going to declutter and shed some weight in cleaning out.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, we're done. That's it. That was the whole episode.
Right. Well, and during the winter, we tend to be less active. There's more darkness. So, we can bring time into this to where we find that we may have accumulated extra weight that was unintentional. And as the temperature warms up, you find you're eating different foods. So there's so many different ways that weight can be influenced, and the messages that it can bring to you. Some of the problems are I don't fit into my clothes that are geared towards warmer weather. So what's the message in that?
Yeah,
that could be so many different things.
Let's start with some of the real basics about weight, and that has to go in both directions. It goes from like having to lose weight to having to gain weight, because then you have not enough weight on your body or too much weight on your body. And what it's a very physical representation of is, number one, on the not having enough weight on you, are you nourishing yourself? Do you believe you're worthy of nourishing yourself? Right?
Yep.
I mean, that's a big one. And we knew somebody who had an adult child who almost died, got so emaciated because no matter what they ate, like they couldn't eat, their body just wouldn't accept things, and they couldn't find anything in tests or anything like that. They literally were not allowing themselves to be nourished in a way that sustained them for life.
Right.
I mean, and that turned into some kind of massive worthiness issue of not even being worthy of sustaining life here, kind of thing.
Yep. Right.
So there can be things like that. On the other end, so there's so many representations of too much weight in medieval times, or like older times. If you had excess weight, that meant you were a wealthy person and that you had a lot, because a lot of the general population barely had enough to eat
to sustain a weight, much less gain weight.
Yes.
Right.
So it was a statement of wealth and abundance. A status, right? And so there was that. What it tends to happen, what it tends to represent today, can be having to do with as we talked about in the spring cleaning, cleaning clutter, is what are you physically holding on to? And sometimes using as a shield so that you don't have to be all of who you really are.
Right. Yep. Or I can use it as a distraction for I'm going to now have to focus all of my attention on my health and all the issues that are a fallout from that excess weight, so that I then don't have to look at where I'm holding myself back in other places.
Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you personally, I went through a period of time. So here's another thing: when we work in energy work, when we work in the ethers a lot, we have these beliefs around balance that we feel like we need to maintain, right? So when we start getting to this place where we're out in the ethers a lot, guess what? Our cells, DNA says, oh no, we need to weigh ourselves down because we're going to float away.
We have to be anchored here, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So the more I'm not anchoring myself here energetically, and people call it grounding. I don't like the term grounding so much as staying connected to the physical as much to the non-physical, because it's all part of the same thing. But we tend to do that. A lot of people, when we get into, especially in the past couple of decades, because we've had such a fast awakening, like we've jumped in consciousness in so many ways collectively. And so many of us have gotten into it. It's like we jump into it. We're out in the ether so much, we remember how much it's so much easier
Right.
in density, blah, blah, blah. Then we resist being here in the physical, except the body says, oh, no, come on in. Let me bring you in with the tether and ground you down here this way. So that's a belief of physics, of some sort of physics of balance that we believe that we need to have, but also so that happened to me to some degree, but I also then piled on a bunch of stuff that I didn't realize I was holding on to. So here's the thing: we think we let go. The consciousness says, I let go of this.
Right.
To my physical body.
Exactly. Right.
It's like saying, going back to our clutter episode, okay, exactly. I let go of this into the attic.
Or into that closet.
Into the junk drawer. I just don't
right.
know.
I organize that closet, but it's still full.
Yes. And so what happens there is it's literally hoarding and clutter at the cellular level within our physical bodies.
Well, and I like to look at it also as it's just not in alignment, because I believe the physical body naturally creates a balance. Mm-hmm. And that when that balance gets disrupted, weight tends to be a symptom of it. And it's that friction of being out of balance.
Yeah. And so, we have, it's funny that we have so much controls around weight too, though, because then we find that, so think about that. How many people have weight problems with like anorexia and things like that, like
the body dysmorphic.
Yes. Body dysmorphia. Yep. And that has to do with a warping of what you're holding on to, right? And what the body looks like. And that's a whole other episode to get into, which is, how we've externalized what makes us valuable, which is how we look, right? And so what is that supposed to be? And
and the same with externalizing what's healthy. Well, the chart says I should weigh this. So if I weigh more or I weigh less, I'm not healthy, regardless of how you feel or how you carry your weight. And again, that's giving up that power of I know what's right for me to someone who knows more or knows better.
Well, what we believe knows more or knows better.
Right.
And so, yes, there is, like you were saying, I do believe the body has when let to its own without emotional struggles or baggage that we hold on to, would be in a natural balance.
Yes.
Except we have created so much distraction at this level of consciousness, so much avoidance, that we have created situations of like a lot of obesity and things like that, because what do? We spend time on our computers, on the TV, on our phones. We don't move. We eat as a comfort.
Yes. Yes. And totally unaware.
Unpresent. Yeah. So, eating and food, well, I think that's going to be another episode. Maybe that's next month.
Yeah, that definitely needs to be an episode all on its own. And I think that weight is not a number.
Mm-mm.
And that we tend to focus on that number, just like, and I hate to get off on this subject, but, if you buy a pair of pants that's size 8, 10 years ago, it's not going to be what a size 8 is right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can't base things on that number. And if you feel good at a certain weight and you're healthy and you have stamina and you move through your day easily, maybe that's the weight for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you run into problems or that disruption of what works for you.
Correct. If the body can't run optimally,
yes,
it doesn't matter. So like there are people who would be considered thin or at the perfect weight whose bodies don't run optimally at all because they're just holding on to stuff in a different way.
Exactly. Yep.
So sometimes we do also hold on to weight as a shield. I sort of said that really quickly and we jumped past it. Shielding is a big way of hiding ourselves because then we don't feel like we're valuable or worthy to be standing on our own authenticity. We are ashamed of ourselves in some way, shape, or form. There's so many different ways I've worked over the years with myself and others on like all that kind of stuff. And it's funny that, when literally one day it's time to let go of the weight. And that was it. It was just a statement. Okay, it's time to let go of it. I'll tell you what, that year was one of the freaking most crazy life-changing years because of the energetic stuff that came up in the same time I was letting go of that weight. And it's funny because it's very similar to what we feel like in situations when we're like a hoarder or something, right? In spring cleaning, where we energetically, we start feeling naked and vulnerable, right? And sad to be letting certain things go about ourselves because we identify with it to some degree.
Well, and on top of that, we almost feel intimidated because all of a sudden we're being seen.
Mm-hmm.
Versus I've been hiding behind this.
Yeah.
And it's no longer there. So I am being seen now for who I am. And a lot of times that invokes a lot of anxiety and fear.
And on the other side of that, sometimes we believe having excess weight, physically making ourselves bigger, will make ourselves safer and actually more prominent and more able to be safe, because then we're protected and we're big and everybody's smaller than us. See, like the crazy things we do with ourselves.
It is.
So, that's a common conversation we've both had with so many people, including ourselves, about, so what was that? What was that about? Like, why have I gained weight? And some people it's like, oh, well, and right away, what do we jump to? Oh, must be the hormones, must be an imbalance. Now, not that there's not an imbalance, but the imbalance in itself within the body is giving you a different message for another day.
Right. Yeah.
For another day. But that in itself is giving you a message in that imbalance that's creating the weight, which is another level of message, right? And we're talking about how messages sort of pile up on top of each other. Before that even happened, there was a message there that you were just not listening to.
Exactly. I mean, it's as I've said since we've started doing this podcast, it's like I can hardly get through a day now without going, "Ah, okay, I'm just getting so many messages from everything."
Yeah, I know.
And I mean, weight is something that it's so in the forefront. It's in the news, it's commercials, it's products we buy. It's almost right up there with like anti-aging. it's it's like what is it? You never can be too rich or too thin.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, and it's funny because if we've had other lifetimes during those time periods where wealth was a show of weight,
Right.
weight
Right.
was a show of wealth. We have it embedded from some level of experience, or we might have had lifetimes where we've been in extreme poverty or whatever, and we were emaciated. And so then we come into a life where we want to, like we're having a more average experience or a decent experience. And we're like, well, I've got to have more weight to show that I have this, right? To show my
Right.
value.
Right.
There's so many layers of this, and it's sort of fun when you pick it apart. The weight is a very personal and um, shameful thing for some people.
It is. It is. It's and as a culture, we have created such judgment around what your weight says about you.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again, just enhances the messages that it's trying to give us.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and we've attached other messages to it, and we've lost it because think about how many layers, that is of how many when you're taught when you're a little kid, don't eat too much.
Right.
Don't eat too much, you're gonna get fat.
Right. And
Or
well, and oh, you put sugar on that.
mm-hmm.
Oh, and oh, you drink Cokes, real Cokes. Or oh, you ate that whole candy bar?
Yeah. Yeah. Or, oh, those jeans are looking a little tight on you,
Right.
looking a little chubby. Oh, like, oh, look at Chubs. I've heard parents say that about their kids, and I just want to bang my head against the wall. Like, oh my God. Because then we have it, and I had stuff like that when I was a kid.
Oh,
And
right.
and that creates dysmorphia in itself because you
It
have this
does.
warped sense of what your body's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to represent. Guess what? Eating disorders are messages of over control, of the need for over control.
Yes. Even if it's a need to control to the point of your detriment
Mm-hmm.
from, I'm not even going to nourish myself, but I'm going to be the one that controls it.
Yep. Every pound, every calorie, every
Right.
ounce. So, and you can look at all this stuff, this is an element that's important that I think a lot of people are missing, which is what I believe causes a lot of yo-yoing in terms of weight.
Right.
As we look at the physicality of it and think about it. I mean, I had a conversation in a business meeting this morning. There was somebody sitting next to me going, oh, well, I'm on this diet right now because this wasn't working for me and this and this and da da. And it's like, okay, but did you deal with what was causing the thing that you think you need the diet about?
Exactly. Yeah.
The most effective programs that I have seen are ones that combine the consciousness around the weight and the eating and whatever, and whether it's adding weight or losing it, over just changing your caloric intake or changing your fat intake or changing your carb intake. I mean, there's a million different ways of doing that. And that's getting into a completely different, avenue. But
Right. That could be a
but
whole nother show on the different diets.
but but part of that has to do with these layers that we're talking about, like how these messages start layering one on top of the other, because in a way, we have created weight as a measurement of control,
Mm-hmm.
right? And how we
Absolutely.
control how we're seen by the world, how we control how we can act in the world, depending on our size and our weight and our presentation and our value.
Yes. Yes. That's one that it took me a while to understand that I was equating a lot of my value with how I looked.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
A lot more
that's
than people consciously are even aware of.
absolutely.
So So this is just like the tip of the iceberg in terms of that. There's just so many different ways to go. If you have questions or issues or whatever with your weight, look at what's under, like, do the why do I care exercise, or what, like, get down to the thing about you, right?
Yes.
Why am I holding on to this weight? Why do I judge this weight? Why do I judge the weight I am? Why do I insist on, again, as we say in every episode, having evidence is wanting.
Right. How does this serve me?
How does this serve me? How does this serve me? I can be smaller than I am by hiding myself in this shield and limiting my physical ability. There's so many things that we can talk about, and I'm sure we'll talk about them on different days. So this is just one of those topics that it's bigger than a bread box, and you got to take it one baby step at a time.
Yes.
Thanks for listening to us on Solving Me. If you found this podcast helpful, make sure to subscribe so you get notice every time we post a new episode.
And for a short time, we have a special bonus for you. Go to solvingme.net to download your free ebook, which outlines the next level of conscious solutions for your inner investigation.
Be sure to help us spread the word. Share us with others you know who want to solve the puzzles of their everyday life through the filter of expanded consciousness, and have fun doing it.
One more thing. Do you have some puzzling life circumstances where you feel blocked and you'd like our take on what's going on? Send us your conscious puzzle at connect@solvingme.net, and maybe you'll be the topic of a future episode.
Until next time, happy sleuthing.